For the first time in more than 2 decades, 3 U.S. aircraft carriers, along with over 15,000 sailors and Marines and over 200 aircraft, are operating in the Middle East. The Pentagon says it has total control over the Strait of Hormuz, turning around at least 34 ships and seizing one that tried to violate its blockade.
No one sails from the Strait of Hormuz to anywhere in the world without the permission of the United States Navy.
But Iran's military still has cards to play. Iranian gunboats attacked at least 3 commercial ships this week and reportedly dropped more mines in the strait.
They're acting like pirates, acting like terrorists. If Iran is putting mines in the water, we will shoot to destroy. No hesitation.
That order coming from President Trump, who seems mostly unconcerned by Iran's recent provocations.
Their Navy is gone, their Air Force is gone. Maybe they loaded up a little bit during the 2-week hiatus, but we'll knock that out in about 1 day if they did.
President Trump is blaming the stalled peace talks on fractured leadership within Iran and says he won't be rushed into a deal that doesn't include a definitive end to Iran's nuclear ambitions.
You know that if I left right now, we had a tremendous success. It would take them 20 years to rebuild, but I don't want to do that. I want to have it everlasting.
According to Iran state media, Iran's foreign minister will visit Pakistan, Oman, and Russia this weekend to discuss the current state of the war. In Washington, Rebecca Castor, Fox News.
Iran's chokehold on the Strait of Hormuz is recalling another moment several decades earlier in which the United States Navy helped guide oil tankers through mine-infested waters of the Persian Gulf and that narrow mouth, the Strait. Now, that's coming during the so-called tanker war. This happened in 1987 and 1988 and saw the United States Navy guide Kuwaiti oil tankers that have been reflagged with the American flag out to the open seas. And this came because Iran was engaged in a years-long war with Iraq. Iraq had started attacking Iranian oil facilities and tankers, and Iran responded by attacking Iraqi ships as well as the ships of other Gulf Arab countries. Now, this tanker war, as it's known by analysts and experts, saw some mines hit these vessels, Iranian missile strikes, jets flying over, attacking these vessels, but the Navy was able to get dozens of convoys out to the global market. It's a different time now than it was then. Iran now holds much more sophisticated missiles, drones, and small, fast boats that it's used already to capture 2 cargo ships just in the last couple of days. And the United States also is a belligerent in the ongoing war with Iran, different than it was back in the 1980s when it was helping the Kuwaitis. Also, we haven't seen any oil companies or shippers come out and ask the United States for this reflagging or help. But if Iran continues its chokehold on the strait, and if global energy markets continue to be strangled, the United States may have to recall those lessons learned decades earlier, and that could see an increasingly bloody fight on the high seas.
כל הבתים בכפרים סמוכי הגבול בלבנון יהרסו. בהתאם למודל רפיח ובית חנון בעזה, כדי להסיר אחת ולתמיד את האיומים סמוכי הגבול מעל תושבי הצפון.
After leveling homes, neighborhoods, and entire cities in Gaza, Israel is exporting that model to southern Lebanon, raising civilian infrastructure in towns and villages near the border to carve a buffer zone out of Lebanese territory, which the Israeli military says is aimed at distancing Israel's northern residents from the threats posed by Hezbollah. But in one town after the next in southern Lebanon, rows of homes have been flattened, shops torn to the ground, entire neighborhoods erased. Over 6 weeks of war, the Israeli military systematically demolished the town of Eit Shab, now practically wiped from the map. Along this street in the border town of Adaissa, which once held a pharmacy and auto repair shop, one building after the next has been reduced to rubble. Even the local mosque was not spared. Steps away, an excavator, and alongside it, a multi-story building, not yet destroyed. To Hassan Ramal, it represented plans for the future, a building he erected in his hometown, apartments on top with shops on the ground floor. It had been partially damaged in a previous Israeli strike. Construction was underway just 1 month before the current war broke out. Those dreams dashed the moment Ramal saw this video, confirming the worst.
وإذ أرسلوا لي صراحة عبر أحد الأشخاص إنه المبنى اللي أنا كنت عم عمره قد دمر كمان. طبعا حسيت إنه الأمل اللي كان موجود تضاءل، إنك أنت تبني ويهدم، تبني ويهدم.
There are countless stories like Ramal's in South Lebanon, a Shia-majority area where many, like Ramal, support Hezbollah. In the town of Bin Jbeil, fierce fighting with Hezbollah militants soon gave way to controlled demolitions, razing the city's old quarter and buildings beyond. Such massive destruction of civilian infrastructure is considered to be a violation of international law and a potential war crime. The aftermath is both apocalyptic and yet terrifyingly familiar, revealing the same kind of systematic destruction Israel carried out to create a buffer zone in Gaza. And like in Gaza, the fragile ceasefire in Lebanon doesn't mean Israel will cease demolitions. Israeli officials say they will continue. In videos filmed by nearby residents post-ceasefire, the ruins of this Lebanese village give way to more destruction. Excavators working to tear down more buildings. Lebanese communities within this roughly 5-mile-wide buffer zone, now controlled by Israeli troops, are facing more of the same. That buffer zone means Ramal hasn't been able to return home, but he remains defiant.
فهو بيقدر يعمل ويقول اللي بده إياه. ولن تكون هناك منطقة عازلة.
And refuses to give up on his dreams of homecoming.
وهذه الأرض عزيزة وغالية. حتى لو بنينا خيمة حأرجع. حتى شم تراب ضيعتي. وهذه ضيعتي لا أقبل إلا أن أدفن بها يوم لحدي.
Jeremy Diamond, CNN.
You never know what's going to happen at Talladega. We're talking about 200 miles an hour, inches apart, sometimes 5 wide in these steep turns, and the fans are totally here for it.
Everything's just a little bit bigger here at Talladega, and that's how we like it.
Track crews are putting on the final touches at Talladega Superspeedway before the high-stakes Jack Links 500. It's the 10th Cup Series race of the season, and drivers are already fighting for a spot in the playoff standings.
The drivers are positioning themselves. They want to be in that top 16 come Daytona in August.
On Sunday, these empty stands will be packed with about 100,000 people. For some, Talladega isn't just a one-day sport. It's a whole weekend of camping.
We spent hundreds, if not thousands, on meat, plenty of water.
Goose is out on the 6.
All right, well.
And it's like vacation for them. There's people that just see each other twice a year here, and they meet up here at Talladega Superspeedway. They all have their little parties and groups, and it's a great sight.
Talladega is home to the infamous 33-degree banking at its 4 turns, the steepest in stock car racing. It's engineered to allow extreme speeds exceeding 200 miles per hour without drivers losing traction, and fans are excited to see it up close and personal.
Crash after crash over years after years of watching, I get to see it. What they're up against.
But for now, all fans can do is wait for that green flag feeling.
They're coming halfway down the straightaway, and you start feeling it in your legs and your body.
This is the biggest, baddest, fastest racetrack there is.
And drivers will begin qualifying on Saturday morning to secure their spot in the starting lineup. And that green flag is expected to wave at 3:20 p.m. Eastern Time on Sunday. In Talladega Superspeedway in Lincoln, Alabama, Asher Red, Fox News.
Following a December executive order from President Donald Trump, the Justice Department and Drug Enforcement Administration announced Thursday that certain marijuana products, including FDA-approved and state-regulated medical cannabis, will now be classified as Schedule 3 under federal law. The DEA defines Schedule 1 drugs as drugs having no currently accepted medical use and a high potential for abuse.
You've got products, items there like heroin, like LSD, Very, very, very strong drugs with high addiction potentials.
Schedule 3 drugs, by contrast, are considered to have a moderate to low risk of dependence. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche says the change will allow for more rigorous research into marijuana's safety and effectiveness while expanding patient access and helping doctors make more informed decisions.
We've already been third-party lab testing our products, reviewing customers' IDs, all of this stuff. So it really, the only change that happens at the federal level is opening up that research, which is going to be crucial.
Nicholas Mortellaro, owner of Botanic Bliss Cafe and Lounge in Central Texas, says day-to-day operations won't change, but the impact long-term could be significant.
This allows us to do that research in a clinical setting, peer-reviewed, placebo-controlled clinical trials, without having to go through the extraordinary amount of red tape that exists for a Schedule I compound.
He says operators in Texas's compassionate use program could see loosened restrictions on their products and a major tax break.
We don't want to take away marijuana from anybody that needs it, because there are people that need it and use it the right way. But there's also, just like alcohol, we know it's legal. There's people that follow what they're supposed to, and there's plenty of people who get DUIs. So it's just part of the situation of unintended consequences whenever you have a substance that can impair you.
But some worry the change could be cause for concern.
Anytime that a drug is not Schedule I or Schedule II, or a drug is legalized, okay, like we're either going to be Schedule III or legalized, it doesn't really matter, both do the same thing, you can no longer test for that drug.
The National Drug and Alcohol Screening Association advocates for employers' right to have a drug-free workplace. Phil Dubois with the NDASA says workplace safety rules could be at risk, especially in transportation. He says the current safeguards in place have been in effect for almost 40 years.
Pilots, we got school bus drivers, we got truck drivers, we got transit drivers, we got subway drivers, we got pipeline workers, railroad engineers, people that work on the railroad tracks. All those people are tested for marijuana, and if it goes through like they're trying to, without a safety carve out, then there'll be consequences, unintended consequences.
The wildfire here in Brantley County is not backing down. The wind picked back up Thursday afternoon, and just like that, the fire roared back to life, threatening homes and forcing new evacuations. Firefighters are in a full-on fight against an exploding wildfire in Brantley County, fueled by dry conditions and gusting winds.
Smoke was just boiling up right behind the trees, beside my house. I didn't actually see the fire, but smoke was everywhere.
Much of South Georgia has turned into a tinderbox as the drought deepens. Officials say the fire in Brantley County west of Brunswick has burned more than 5,000 acres and is only 15% contained. From the air and ground, crews had been making progress Thursday until the wind picked up.
It went from being something that they were really working on mopping up to a very hot fire that could jump another road.
At least 80-plus homes and structures have been destroyed, with more threatened, but thankfully no lives have been lost. A local used car lot was hit hard as the fast-moving fire tore through, with at least a dozen vehicles burned to their frames. The loss in Brantley County measured in ash, even as the firefight on the front lines continues. Officials say more than 200 people are working to stop the spread and keep people safe, even as it roared back to life, prompting new pleas for people to leave.
We need folks to understand they need to be prepared to evacuate. This is a dynamic fire that's changing.
Billy Douglas is now back home for now after the fire shifted away from his property, but the threat is still there.
Because I've seen forest fires, the water hose ain't going to slow down a forest fire.
Officials say this wildfire is still far from contained, and they're telling people to stay alert and be ready to leave at a moment's notice if needed. Georgia Governor Brian Kemp is expected to visit the area on Friday. In Brantley County, Tyler Fingert, Fox 5 News.
Honestly, I think they're in shock. It's very quiet. They're coming in. There's not much movement around the hotel.
A hotel in South Georgia doing what it can to help residents forced to evacuate amid raging wildfires.
I think that they're just really scared of what's going to happen and where their next moves are.
Tragically, some have already lost their homes, only able to look out onto the ash-covered ground where their houses once stood.
This continues to be a very high-threat environment with a lot of unknowns. We cannot control the weather.
That weather very, very dry.
Overall in our region, we're experiencing exceptional drought conditions, very low humidities, high fire danger indicators with wind.
Georgia, along with much of the continental U.S., is facing a major drought. Nearly 2/3 of the lower 48 states are affected as of this week. The U.S. Drought Monitor says it's the largest spring drought on record, taking a heavy toll on the West, the Southeast, and the Plains, a region that is also facing a tornado threat, including Oklahoma, where this massive twister struck on Thursday night. The destructive stovepipe tornado in northern central Oklahoma was on the ground for more than 30 minutes, leaving injuries and significant damage in its wake. I'm Reed Binion reporting.
Tornadoes are complex phenomena. We don't have all the answers to why they form, why they sustain themselves, and why they die, and can have wind speeds of 60 miles an hour to as much as 300 miles an hour. So how do they start? That's a difficult question. We're still trying to analyze storms. What we do know is that storms that form tornadoes usually start with rotation aloft in the mid parts of the storm, and that cascades down closer and closer to the surface. Most tornadoes are short-lived, some only on the order of minutes, maybe even less than that, and might not travel that far. In other cases, particularly during the cool seasons, those tornadoes tend to move very fast. The United States has more tornadoes and greater tornado density than any place in the world. So we have a very unique geography in the United States. We have the proximity of the Gulf of Mexico and the Western Caribbean that brings that moisture up into the United States, which is a critical ingredient for thunderstorm formation. And then we got the mountains on the west side, and they create a unique environment that's supportive of very strong instability or energy for thunderstorms. That said, there are places, other hot spots in the world. Eastern China, a lot of Europe gets tornadoes. Most tornado warnings are about 15 minutes before the tornado touches down. That gives you a lot of time, relatively speaking, to take shelter and do what is necessary to prevent death and injury.
They're our companies. It's like us targeting their companies, which we could do very easily.
The tariff war could be heating up again. President Trump sounding off on the UK over its digital services tax, a 2% tax on tech companies making more than $33 million a year from British companies. It hits American tech giants like Amazon, Google, and Apple, and now the president says he wants to hit back.
We've been looking at it, and we can meet that very easily by just putting a big tariff on the UK, so they better be careful. If they don't drop the tax, we'll probably put a big tariff on the UK.
The new threat comes as trade talks with India remain stalled. A deal is still unsigned months after the summit between Presidents Trump and Modi. And a high-level Indian trade delegation left Washington on Thursday night with little progress to report.
These engagements are ongoing and constructive. Both sides are working towards a balanced, mutually beneficial and forward-looking trade agreement.
But it's a different story in Canada, where Prime Minister Mark Carney is offering a new deal, allowing American alcohol back into Canadian stores in exchange for tariff relief on cars and metals. At the same time, Carney continues to pivot Canada's economy away from the U.S.
Many of our former strengths, based on our close ties to America, have become our weaknesses that we must correct.
The U.S., Canada, and Mexico are facing a July 1st deadline to start a mandatory review of their trade relationship. In Washington, Mallory Rivera, Fox News.
A financial lifeline for Spirit Airlines could be on the way after the company filed for bankruptcy twice and continues to struggle with the increase of fuel costs as the war on Iran continues. President Trump considering a bailout with the intent of reselling the airline after the price of oil drops. The deal would reportedly be worth $500 million. Rising fuel costs hitting other airlines hard as well. United announcing a 20% increase in ticket prices to offset the added cost. The announcement comes following earlier fare and baggage fee increases since the war began. Two major companies announcing layoffs this week, Nike cutting around 1,400 jobs, mainly in its technology division. And Meta will cut approximately 10% of its workforce, about 8,000 workers. The company says the cuts were for the sake of efficiency and will allow them to increase spending on AI and infrastructure. And Kellogg's will be adding some fun back into breakfast, putting toys back in their cereal boxes for the first time in over a decade. The move comes ahead of the June release of Toy Story 5. The special edition cereal boxes will feature toys inspired by the movie and will be available nationwide starting April 26th. CJ Papa, Fox News.
It's no secret alcohol isn't considered good for your health, as it raises risk of heart disease, liver damage, and more. It's also the leading preventable cause of several cancers, and it can take a toll on mental health.
Anxiety refers to the emotional symptoms that can come up the morning after you have some drinks.
Dr. Hannah Snyder with Cleveland Clinic says that can include brain fog, anxiety, sadness, irritability, and feelings of regret, guilt, and shame.
People can also experience on the physical side a racing heart, butterflies in the stomach, sweating, and fidgeting.
Snyder says alcohol can also worsen mental health conditions like depression, diagnosed bipolar disorders, psychotic disorders, sleep disorders, ADHD, trauma-related disorders, and can increase risk of suicide. If you choose to drink, she says to be conscious of cocktail consumption.
Some great first steps are eating a healthy meal before drinking plenty of water, spacing out drinks, and diluting drinks, even with ice.
Snyder says cutting back on alcohol or cutting it out completely may be the most helpful way to avoid anxiety, but she says it all comes down to knowing your body.
For some folks, having a drink or two can feel okay. For others, that won't be part of their lives.
For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
mRNA vaccines for cancer hold a lot of promise.
This week, data from a Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center trial left doctors working in pancreatic cancer research and funding with new hope. That includes Dr. Anna Birkenblit with the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network, or PanCAN. She explains to Fox 10 how the trial worked, using an mRNA vaccine administered to patients whose cancer was caught early enough for them to undergo surgery, and then pair the vaccine with immunotherapy.
The vaccine was a bespoke vaccine, so it was made from the patient's own tumor and then given back to the patient. And we know that 7 out of 8 patients in the trial who responded to the vaccine plus the immunotherapy are still alive 6 years after surgery.
That's a stat that means a lot for a cancer with just a 13% 5-year survival rate. Robert Panacci will become a 6-year survivor in June.
I got very lucky, was able to get in there early. Surgery was deemed successful. Surgeon was very happy with what he saw.
Panacci says he wants to give others hope, but also wants to emphasize the time and money involved in these trials.
Let's make sure we keep the focus and attention on getting the funding that these companies are finding difficult to get, to pull out the real solutions and get them to the patient's arms as fast as possible.
Dr. Birkenblit says more data is needed from an efficacy and safety perspective, but she says a phase 2 clinical trial is already in the works.
This is a larger randomized study, and so hopefully that will show that this benefit is present in a larger population.
I believe music can change the world.
Parece que todos tienen una canción favorita de Michael Jackson, incluido el elenco de Michael.
I'll Be There, Jackson 5.
Off the Wall.
Yeah. And PYT. It's always go-to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say Baby Be Mine.
Oh, yeah.
That's a great one.
That's
a great
It's a
banger.
that song.
Yeah, I agree.
No,
Don't stop till you get enough.
Michael se encuentra ya en cartelera.
In some kind of trouble. Are you all right? You cannot let your past define who you are.
También ya en cines Ricky, protagonizada por Stephen James, como un hombre que intenta adaptarse a la vida después de la prisión. El drama independiente ganó el premio a la mejor dirección en la categoría de drama estadounidense en el Festival de Cine de Sundance del año pasado.
Acapella has become cool since Pitch Perfect.
600 groups, 12,000 students competing every
Ting
year.
sigue a un grupo universitario que canta a capela, que intenta mantener su estatus como uno de los mejores de Estados Unidos. El documental se estrena este fin de semana en Nueva York y Los Ángeles y se expandirá a más ciudades esta primavera. Siguiendo en sintonía con las noticias de Hollywood, soy Berta Ramos.
Run into the sunlight. It's the first light of day when you wake.
That's Lana Del Rey singing First Light. The theme to 007 First Light is part of the video game's cinematic opening sequence. The game arrives in June.
The entire city is racked by an explosion.
Hero.
19!
Dungeons & Dragons has debuted its Dungeon Masters streaming series. Part of the actual play genre, the series follows a group playing the game for the viewing audience on the official D&D YouTube channel.
I've been playing this game for years, and it's just about learning your table. And for me, it's less about controlling the game and more about directing the spotlight and the flow. So anytime I feel like there's a player at the table that hasn't engaged with the story as much or hasn't had as many moments, if that makes sense, I try to think about the best way to incorporate their character and their backstory into what is happening in the greater world.
And if running a food truck is on your must-try list, Food Truck Chef Full Course Edition is out now with cooking and item management on the menu. The game is playable on PC via Steam and Nintendo Switch. Leveling Up in Hollywood, I'm Rick Damigella.
Check out the moment a car goes flying over a roundabout, landing and tumbling end over end, putting a stop to a chase. The North Yorkshire Police recently released video from the July 2025 pursuit, saying they tried to pull over the impaired driver who, instead of stopping, took off, topping out at speeds around 140 miles per hour on the English roadway. The driver of the BMW eventually lost control, launching into the air and rolling several times before coming to a rest. Speaking of arrests, those Fast and Furious-style high-flying antics have landed the driver in serious trouble, sentenced to 16 months in jail and a nearly 4-year driving ban. In a post accompanying the video, North Yorkshire Police reminded the public to report any dangerous drivers. How about a completely unrelated story? 2 bear cubs are causing quite the kerfuffle in one California neighborhood. According to CBS LA, this snoozing animal has been stuck in a tree for at least 3 days, while the other snuck into a storm drain. Mama can't be very happy with her little ones. Apparently, the kiddo in the tree hasn't learned how to climb down yet. Neighbors say the mom has been sticking near the tree, going up periodically to make sure the cub is fed. Meanwhile, concerned crews showed up to try to coax the other little bear out of the sewer. After a little time and space, that cub simply emerged on its own. Biologists are on site to make sure all the animals are okay. Officials are planning to reunite the cubs with their mom as soon as possible. For Take a Look at This, I'm Patrick Cornell.
Fox 54 Plus has your news, sports, and weather. Start your evening with Fox 54 at 5:30, delivering the latest headlines and live reports straight from the scene. Then, stay informed with Fox 54 News at 9, featuring your Tennessee Valley certified most accurate weather impact team, tracking everything from tornado threats to traffic delays during severe weather. Fox 54 Sports Extra brings you more of what sports fans crave, with deeper insights, expert analysis, and all the action that matters most. On Fox 54 Plus, you'll also find Alabama politics, plus 24/7 weather radar and real-time forecasts to keep you ahead of the storm. Looking for a quick recap? Don't miss Fox 54 Week in Review, highlighting the biggest stories of the week. Jumpstart your morning with Morning Rush. Fast-paced news updates, featured with uplifting stories from across the globe. Get your entertainment fix with Getting Real, where we break down movie reviews, top 10 lists, and spotlight the newest film. Die Hard fan? Locked On Sports dives deep into the Crimson Tide, the tigers, college rivalries, and pro action. True crime more your style? Killer Cases brings you gripping real-life stories that stick with you. Hungry for more? Cooking with Style serves up mouth-watering recipes that are easy to make and impossible to resist. From movie previews before you head to the theater with Take a Look to must-know headlines from across the region and around the world with In the News. Watch all of these shows on demand and also on the Fox 54 News app. Available on Android and iOS devices. Streaming 24/7.
There's more to Fox 54 Plus with the Locked On Podcast Network. From the Tide to the Tigers, from college teams to pro, the Locked On Podcast Network gives you insights and analysis you just can't find anywhere else.
These kids, they want to play.
But I don't think so. I think it was Chad Baker-Mazzara.
Locked On Sports, streaming every day of the week and right here on Fox 54 Plus.
Your wife is in a bar. You said she's unresponsive.
This is what he's going to tell you.
Trying to find the first place to put a body.
No, sir.
The only thing they could do was kill him.
Be the jury and to find the defendant